Hello YouTube, welcome to this video series. In the interest of not making a pointlessly long intro, let's just cut to the chase. There's this thing called the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Every year they host a lavish gala telling you what the best movie of the year is. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. We're going to go down the list of them to figure out how far back into the past it was when they started making decisions that boggle the mind. Join me on the journey through film history and hey, maybe you'll find some new movies that you want to watch. Welcome to On the Oscars. On May 16, 1929, the first Academy Awards took place in the Hollywood Resort Hotel to hand out awards for the best movies of 1927 and the first half of 1928. It had humble beginnings. Tickets cost $5, there was no live coverage, and the whole ceremony took about 15 minutes. And believe it or not, they actually had two awards for what you could call Best Picture. First was the Academy Award for Outstanding Picture, which was given to Wings. Second was the Academy Award for Unique and Artistic Picture, which was given to Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. At the second Academy Awards, they realized having two awards for the best movie was kind of a stupid idea, so they knocked it down to one and decided that Wings was the better film, and would have the distinction of being the first ever movie to win the Academy Award. I'll give a brief review of Sunrise later in this video, since it was also technically the first Oscar win, but we're going to spend most of today talking about Wings. Wings is a war movie that pretty much celebrates American involvement in World War I. Two small-town boys named Jack, played by Buddy Rogers, and David, played by Richard Arlen, decide to join the army after the United States has entered World War I. At first they hate each other, but eventually become close friends and both become decorated pilots in the newfound Air Force. Meanwhile, in a subplot, a woman from the same town named Mary, played by Clara Bow, is in love with Jack, and joins the Motor Corps for a chance to meet him again. From there, you can probably predict most of the plot, as it's your standard coming-of-age war movie, and most of the people who die, you can see it coming from a mile away. But to be fair, it was 1927. The movie cliches were still being written. So, aside from that, what does and doesn't work here? The best thing in this movie is Clara Bow as Mary. The movie was sort of written around this character since Clara Bow was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood at the time, so she was their golden goose to get the film off the ground. It's not hard to see why she was such a star. She is so damn likable. She's funny, she's magnetic, she steals the show every time the movie cuts back to her, and she's a great female character from a time period when women were usually cast to the side, especially in movies. In addition, the scale of this film is amazing. It never feels like you're watching a set. You believe that you're right there in the middle of a World War I camp. Or battlefield, whichever. Anyway, the battle scenes are also a lot of fun, and have a nice sense of scale to them, with special mention going to the climax of the film. But we're beating around the bush here. Let's talk about what really stands out about this movie: the flying scenes. Wings was the first ever aviation film, and set the stage for many later aviation films that have become staples, such as Hell's Angels and The Dawn Patrol, and even more modern movies like Top Gun and Flyboys. This is the reason why the movie won the first Oscar. It really feels like you're thousands of miles in the air in an airplane, an effect that they achieved by strapping a camera to an airplane, thousands of miles in the air. Yeah, the more you think about it, the crazier it gets, but still, this film was a spectacle to watch back then. Most of the flying scenes still hold up today. Granted, it does cheat a little bit when it comes to the editing, since they simply have title cards explaining which plane is which and who you should be rooting for, but hey, better that than not being able to follow the action at all, right? So yeah, great flying scenes, a really lovable female character, and a tremendous final battle are why this movie won. Now let's talk about the faults and discuss why it shouldn't have. The big problem with Wings is our main protagonist, Jack Powell. He's supposed to be the small-town, everyday American boy who grows up to become a war hero, but instead he comes off as an arrogant jackass, even by the end of the movie. Yeah, normally the arc for this kind of character is supposed to be that war hardens him into becoming more mature, reserved, and all that other glorious shit. But that really doesn't happen. By the end of the movie, he's still self-centered and self-righteous. He constantly tells us that he's become a better person, but that's the thing. He's telling us. He's not showing us. We're not being told by someone else, though it comes off as insincere. The way he acts towards David, who's supposed to be his best friend, is especially despicable. The other major flaw with Wings is the ending, and by that I mean the very ending. Without spoiling it, the movie ends on a note that makes it feel like it exists just to have a happy ending. The problem is that it doesn't feel like it's been properly built up to. In fact, the very first scene of the movie establishes that this is something that would be very difficult, if not impossible, to happen. Maybe if Jack wasn't such a stubborn jackass and actually developed, I would be able to buy it more, but oh yeah, neither of those things happen. There's also a lot of filler in this movie. One scene in particular that stands out to me is this really painfully unfunny bit where Mary tries to reunite with Jack after he's drank enough to stun a mule. He's so drunk, in fact, that he hallucinates bubbles appearing out of thin air, starts raving about how he's going to go fight the Kaiser for these bubbles. Okay, 1, I've been drunk many times before, and this has never happened to me. 2, they drag this on for a good 20 minutes, and it only gets worse the longer it goes. I don't know if this would have been funny back in the day, but this humor strikes me as really juvenile, which is weird because isn't this supposed to be an adult-oriented war movie? Like, people are dying, having to make hard choices. Nothing else about this film screams that you should show your kids, so I don't know why this part of the movie is like this. Or why it has to be so fucking long. Also, this scene confuses me. During one of the first dogfights, David's gun jams, and the German he's fighting spares him rather than take an easy kill. Now, this is an act of nobility that built the mystique of these fighter pilots and helped turn them into legends, as well as make the bad guys more human. Later on, however, you have Jack gunning down German soldiers before they can even get in their planes, opening fire on troops who are in the middle of retreating. I'm sorry, isn't this supposed to be an American propaganda film? Like, we're supposed to root for the Americans no matter what, right? Then how come he's acting like a bigger asshole than the Germans, the ones we fought a war against? So yeah, that's Wings. A huge spectacle when it first came out, but it hasn't really aged well. But was it truly the best film that year? Well, before we find that out, I'm going to give a quick little mini review of Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. Like I said before, Wings won the Oscar for Outstanding Picture, while Sunrise won the Oscar for Unique and Artistic Picture. I'm assuming that the former would have been for action-adventure extravaganzas, while the latter would have been for smaller stories, which is an interesting distinction, though it probably was for the best that they would just merge the two. For the record, Sunrise is not at all what I was expecting it to be. The film takes place in a small farm town where a man, played by George O'Brien, lives with his wife, played by Julie Gaynor, who became the first person to ever win the Academy Award for Best Actress because of this movie. Well, this and Seventh Heaven. And Street Angel. Either way, the man meets a woman from the city, played by Margaret Livingston. The two have an affair, and the woman eventually convinces the man to murder his wife and elope with her. And not only that, the bastard honestly considers it. Yeah, a bit darker than what I was expecting. Still, that kind of setup does guarantee interest right from the get-go, and yeah, the movie is pretty interesting. It's got a good setup and a good climax. The problem is the middle. Again, without spoiling too much, the major conflict of the movie is resolved about 45 minutes in, and then you're stuck with these characters who just sort of do things for like 20 minutes. Granted, I get the point of this sequence, but it really drags on. There's no pressing concerns, no strife, no conflict, and thus, no interest. It's not even that much of a spectacle, just stuff that you could very easily do yourself. So, what's the point of watching it then? But I digress. The story does eventually come back and get interesting again, it just takes a little while. Comparing these two films, I do think that Sunrise is the better movie and kinda wish that the Academy retroactively called that the first Best Picture, but I do understand where the praise for Wings came from. Mostly for those airplane scenes. Okay, entirely for those airplane scenes, but hey, they're good airplane scenes. Well, this Oscar review is a big old movie sandwich that's too big for one mouthful. Tune in next week and we'll analyze whether or not Wings was the best movie of that year.
Toot-toot-tootsie, goodbye. Toot-toot-tootsie, don't cry. The little choo-choo train that takes me away from you. You don't know just how sad it makes me. Kiss me pretty and then, ow, ow, do it over again. Watch for the mail, I'll never fail. If you don't get a letter, then you know I'm in jail. Hey, hey. Don't cry, Tootsie, don't cry.